What's good, YouTube land? Pops the Games. We're back with another One Piece game from another tournament. This is our second tournament that we streamed, and this is round one. Tony versus Jim. We got an Ivankov blue deck versus Smoker on the right there with Jim. This is always an interesting matchup. Blue tends to have, big characters later on in the game with Ivankov and Luffy that they're going to kind of, push strong with. And then you have black where, late game you're getting into 10-drop Kuzan territory, which is always scary with that static effect of -5 on everything. So it looks like Tony started us off. Didn't have a turn one play with New Kama Land. So he passed to Jim there, who starts off with a blocker. And we'll see what Tony can do here. Looks like he has 3 Dons. So he starts off with OP1 Doflamingo, which is a great card. If you ran Doflamingo Leader in OP1, you know how great it is. Not only is it a blocker, but you get to look at the top cards of your library, rearrange them how you like them. If there's nothing there you want to keep, you can pitch them all to the bottom. So he's just a great card early on to see if you don't have, like, say, Perona, which I know most Ivankov decks, don't run Perona, but Tony gets a swing in there early, which makes sense for Jim to take, this early in the game, start to get that card advantage and build up. And Jim's going to swing back there. Usually with black, you want to try and keep their board clear before they get a bunch of stuff, but it's same with blue. I think that tends to be kind of a consistent theme with all decks. You don't want your opponent to have a ton of characters that build up. And as we can see from Jim's hand, he's starting off with 2 10-drop Kuzans, which isn't the greatest early game, but at least you have them for late game. Here on this turn, we see that Tony has New Kama Land, which is a key piece in his deck when playing to not only pitch your hand, but also to have that draw advantage. And from Tony's hand, it looks like right now he does have the Ivankov and Luffy combo. So he's essentially just waiting to get to 7 Dons so he can play that. You want to keep, a couple cards in hand for Luffy's effect. I believe it's pitch 2 cards to bounce your opponent's character. Right here, Tony goes in for a swing, and Jim has the perfect play with Impact Wave, which lets him pop that Doflamingo blocker. And so now on Jim's turn, even though he's got 2 smaller characters out there, he's got a free swing into Tony. He has 2 Don up, and it looked like he had a Love Beam in hand, so he does have a counter. But we'll see what Jim decides to do here. Looks like he's going to swing in for 5 with his blocker, which makes sense since he's got the free swing. The Love Beam, 3 or less, which Ivankov, you always have lower cards. We'll let you draw a card off that, which helps replenish, get to your next turn. And so he's going to want to have those cards in hand for Luffy, so it makes sense that he took that life there. And then Jim throwing out a Kobe with no effect, but just to get a body on the board to keep that pressure going on Tony. And it looks like he does have the 7 Don here now. It's kind of hard to tell, but I'm assuming since he tapped them all there. To play out Ivankov, which is kind of the bread and butter of this deck. Once you play out the 7-drop Ivankov, it lets you play out another character from your hand. And the perfect combo with that, of course, is to cheat out the 6-drop Luffy, which he's pitching the 2 cards for Luffy's effect on play to bounce Rosinante. It looks like bounce Rosinante, which I'm surprised he didn't do Suru just so that he could attack even with leader into Rosinante and then either force Jim to take a life and or block it. That way he doesn't have it because right there when he swings for 5, he can pitch the Rosinante for that 1,000 counter. But now Tony's established some pretty serious threats on the board, which is what blue tends to do as you get into the later game. And so now it's going to be tough for Jim to start to kind of deal with those. So it looks like he's swinging in here. He put the Don on Smoker, so I'm assuming he did a minus effect and maybe have a Sakazuki coming. Yep. So he probably minused with Smoker effect on that Luffy on the swing. That way it drops Luffy down to 5. So then he can play that Sakazuki, which is a great play to pop that Luffy off the board, especially because Jim doesn't want his characters to, keep getting bounced. At this point in the game, he needs to start to develop his board again and keep that pressure on Tony. And it is hard to tell, but it looks like Tony has 9 Don here. And it looks like he has another Ivankov in hand, with 2 Luffy. So New Kama, draw a card. See what other answers he has before he makes a play, but is going to tap the 7 for another Ivankov and Luffy. Looks like doesn't have the second card in hand to pitch to bounce for on play. And I'm not sure what's happening here. Must be something maybe with a new comma land, or maybe he didn't draw for turn. But either way, he does have the 2 cards in hand now, so looks like he can use Luffy's on-play effect then off of Ivankov if he chooses to. But we'll see what's happening here. So Jim has slowly kept his board developed. So Tony is going to pitch the 2 cards. Looks like bounce the blocker, which is a smart choice. And he has 2 attacks right now. So it looks like he's going to do the 6 at Kobe, which makes sense, and then swing in for life. And Jim looks like he has quite a few cards in hand, so to me, I would take that as well, keep building that advantage. And now I believe Jim is at 10 Dawn, or maybe he is at, yep, he is at 10 Dawn, and he just showed us the 3 10-drop Kuzans, so obviously Kuzans are coming. We will see what he does here with his 10 Dawn. Sometimes it can be frustrating in games having a bunch of large cards like that. I remember when I played Whitebeard, you know, when you have multiple 9-drop Edward Newgates in hand, or even with Eustace and you had multiple 8-drops, it can be kind of frustrating. But if you're able to maintain and then get a couple turns and you can drop multiple huge threats like that, usually they can be game changing. So it looks like Jim swings in here. Tony takes the life, and then Borsellino, one of the top black cards, great blocker, followed by a Suru. And then does play the Brickfist, which is a great card for only 2. Return a character with 4 or less to owner's hand. So he is able to bounce that Borsellino, which is a great play from Tony, especially because Borsellino is so tough to deal with. And we'll see what he does next here. We're kind of on that clutch time of who can continue to, you know, control the board and, you know, make those plays. Looks like Tony is calculating what he wants to do here. We know Jim does have the 10-drop Kuzans in hand, so we'll see when Jim decides to drop that, because usually 10-drop Kuzan's kind of that game-changing card. So it looks like Tony's going to attach 2 Dawn to Luffy and swing for 9 here, I believe. Or no, he touched the 2 Dawn, and then he pitched 2 cards to bounce the Suru, and then I'm assuming he's swinging for 9, it looks like. And he has 2, 4, 6 Dawn left, so Jim counters out of the 9, unless he was maybe attacking Sakazuki. I'm not sure here. We didn't have audio for this. But it looks like Jim did counter out of whichever target Tony was attacking. So he's going to put 3 Dawn, looks like go after Sakazuki, and then swings 6 at life, which Jim takes, which makes sense at this point in game. And Tony cleaning up his attackers, and we'll see what Jim does. Currently, to me, right now would not be the smartest choice to drop a 10-drop Kuzan, only because he couldn't use the pop effect on Luffy or Ivankov because it's only -5. So I'd probably try to throw out some lesser threats and or develop my board a little more, especially because you need them to be at 0 for his effect. So it looks like Jim's going to put on a decent amount of Dawn here on Smoker and swing into Luffy, which that was my thought pattern of try to develop your board with that blocker. You said clear Tony's before you commit to that 10-drop. Or if Jim could get a 4-drop Kuzan here and swing with that, that's usually kind of your super combo there, is when you have the 4-drop and the 10-drop. That way if they have something big and beefy, you're able to minus it down to 0. So Tony's going to throw out in Azuma here a blocker, and we'll see what he does next. So he's piling on the Dawn on Ivankov and swinging at life. Jim chooses not to block, which I probably wouldn't either, just because you want to keep that Borsellino on board just so you can have it to attack with. It looks like he's passing turn to Jim. So we will see what he does here. Looks like he's going to drop the 10-drop to pop the blocker and swing in for 5 at Tony. And with only one card in hand, it looked like a Love Beam. I probably would have used that Love Beam just to have the draw off of it and save that life. But we will see what Tony chooses to do here. So it looks like he has another Inazuma in hand, which I'm guessing he's going to throw out here. Yep, just to have another blocker. And see, this is the problem when Kuzan isn't sideways, is that next turn you got a big beat stick for 10k swinging at your face. So it looks like he's pounding it down on Ivankov again for 9. I'm assuming swinging leader. Yep, which Jim chooses to take. And it looks like Jim has quite the hand there. It looks like 6+ cards. And he is passing. I'm surprised he didn't attack with the Ivankov character. Just to either force some of those cards out of Jim's hand and or the Borsalino blocker. But we will see what he's doing. Left with the 2-up for Love Beam. So Jim could technically drop another 10-drop right here and pop the 7-drop Ivankov, swing with Smoker, swing with the 10-drop Kuzan, and still have Borsalino blocker. So we will see. It looks like he's minusing effect, I'm guessing on Ivankov, or possibly probably the blocker. Minus the effect so that Smoker gets his attack buff when something is at 0. So it's like 2 done on there, so or maybe 3. It's hard to tell. So it looks like Jim's probably swinging for 8 or 9 at lead. So if it is 9, Love Beam would not be much help right now. So you'd either have to Love and counter. So we'll see what he does. Looks like he does take the life. So we'll see what Jim chooses to do here. 2, 4. Looks like Jim has 7 on. So he does have quite a few options here. See what he chooses to do. Could probably, well, you could maybe swing for game here. Yeah, so we'll see. Yep. And there's the Sakazuki for the popper. And I'm assuming this is game. Yep, swinging for 11. Love, and the counter is not going to be enough. And Tony's not going to be able to counter out of that. So GG's Jim. Great win and video. And hope you guys enjoyed.